Hi, everyone. Welcome to Aspire to Grow. Thank you all for joining us, and we will begin momentarily as we wait for everybody to join the meeting, and Giselle will get us started with introductions.
Thank you all so much for being here at the third annual Aspire to Go conference. We're very excited to have this meaningful event happening today. I'm Giselle Neri Corcoles, a fourth year Ag Science major, and I'm serving as one of the student co-chairs for the conference.
My name is Riley Van Ness. I'm a fourth year Agriculture and Environmental Plant Science major with a concentration in plant protection. Thank you all for being here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kinder Fulton, and I'm a fourth year Experience Industry Management major, and I'm really excited to be here today.
We would like to thank our sponsors, Nutrient Ag Solutions and the Cafes Department for helping us make this event happen.
Excited to have you all here. We have a great lineup of speakers and we'll be covering topics focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. You'll have the opportunity to connect with the speakers and ask questions. And throughout the event, look out for raffles where you can win cafe swag, you can win gift cards, and luckily we also have 2 pairs of AirPods to raffle. So make sure to stick around for that throughout the event and look forward to the great speakers that we have today. And Kendra, if you want to move into our first surprise.
Yes, I'm just waiting real quick. I think Donna is still pulling the raffle winners. So she'll send me over those names, but we'll have raffles, like Giselle said, throughout the entire event. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. So I think the first raffle is 2 Starbucks gift cards, and they're each $25. And the first winner is Imelda Dooley, and the second winner is Chloe McGovern. So congratulations. To receive your prize, if you could please private message Donna Packard in the Zoom chat. She will also put her email address in the chat, so you can email her and reach out to her to receive your prize. All right, so congratulations to our raffle winners. Like I said, we'll have more raffles throughout the entire event, so stay tuned for that. So I would now like to welcome the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environmental Sciences Dean, the wonderful Dean Thulin, to say a few words and get things started.
Wow, thanks so much, Kendra, and good morning, everyone. I want to thank everyone for joining us for this third annual Aspire to Grow conference, where we'll have a fantastic discussion around innovation in the food and agriculture sectors. A diversity of background, experience, and thought play a role in achieving all this. We have a great lineup of speakers this year, and I want to thank our student co-chairs, Giselle Neri Corcoles, Riley Van Ness, and Kendra Fulton for today's conference. They put a lot of time and energy into this. I also want to thank the members of our college's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for their involvement, as well as our key sponsor, Nutrient Ag Solutions, and Karen Watts, who is here with us this morning. Most of all, I want to thank all of you who are attending today. I was thrilled to learn yesterday that more than 300 people registered, and we're also live streaming this on YouTube to make sure everyone can participate. I'm excited to see so many students here in the audience, students from Cal Poly, as well as our partner universities, students from Fresno State, Ventura Community College, Cuesta College, Pierce College, and Lassen Community College, and others that might show they're up today. I'm also seeing lots of faculty, staff, industry partners, and alumni among others. So thanks again for these young women for the tremendous leadership that they've presented. And I say them all because they're also involved in a lot of areas in the college, and I sincerely appreciate all they do for our college and for Cal Poly. Again, thanks so much for taking time to join us, and I want to thank our guest speakers for what I know will be a thought-provoking conversation, particularly our Secretary of Agriculture, our Secretary of Food and Agriculture for the state of California, Secretary Karen Ross. And now I'd like to turn it over to Karen Watts from Nutrient Ag Solutions. Karen is an alumnus of the college. In fact, she was the recipient of this year's annual Alumnus of the Year Award for our college. She's also the chair of the college's Industry Advisory Council and a huge champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, both in her own organization at Nutrient as well as at Cal Poly. So please join me now in welcoming Karen Watts.
Thanks, Dean Thulin. Good morning, and allow me to add my welcome to the third Aspire to Grow event sponsored by Cal Poly and Nutrien. I'm really excited to see so many students from different colleges and universities in California. Just some history on Aspire to Grow is that the program started at Colorado State University in 2014 by Kay Reistenstein, who is our Vice President of Retail Finance, and has also been held at a university in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So the leaders of Nutrien who support this event had a vision to empower those who may not have had as much exposure to different aspects of agriculture to understand the opportunities that exist in many careers that support food and the environment. Part of our goal is to focus on workplace diversity, inclusion, and innovation, not just with people, but also with opportunities. Economics growth stems from diversity, especially in the agricultural business. I just had a moment with Secretary Ross and said, you know, we have 440 crops that our company supports in the Western United States. Agriculture is associated with more than 21 million jobs in the US, and there's many and varied career opportunities in the industry. For me, at Cal Poly and in my early days, I had the opportunity to have exposure to leaders and mentors who did not allow me being a woman to be a barrier. And I really want to pay it forward and help make the world a more open and inclusive place. I hope each of you that's listening, men, women, no matter what, that you will consider reaching out and asking somebody to be your mentor. I think that's been a great opportunity for me, is to have different mentors from different parts of the industry. If you want to move to my next slide, this slide features another Cal Poly graduate who I met when she was a student. She came to work for Nutrien as a pest control advisor and then moved into a recruiting role. And she currently serves as our West Region Digital Adoption Lead. Brianna Roddenberry leads a team that is working to facilitate digital goals for our locations and personnel. So, think about it: pest control advisor, recruiting, digital lead, all jobs that she may not have considered early in her college years, and as to what she was looking to do. And, I know Brianna will go on and continue to lead in our company. And she had some good mentors and people that reached out and took care of her. So I think that's an opportunity for each of you. So it's our hope as the sponsor that you'll be exposed to ideas and people and companies who are engaged in agriculture and horticulture communities. From an idea that you may think about today, we hope you'll be challenged to consider to be a part of the next generation of leaders in this field. Now is the time and place for anybody who wants to be part of feeding the world and ensuring that our environment will support those opportunities. I'm going to end my part today with a short Nutrien video that just shows some kind of the opportunities in our commitment as a company.
We're for agriculture, for growers, doers, whatever it takers. We're for hard work that leads to success through the blood, the sweat, and the tears. We're for doing things with purpose, aspiring to the next what's next. We're for believing in the greater good, to turn what ifs into why the heck nots. We're for the little guy with big guy dreams. Integrity, sacrifice, and absolutely no tolerance for excuses. We're for accountability and keeping promises, leveraging global resources to make a local impact. Passionately driven, fiercely loyal. We're for agriculture. We're for you. Nutrien Ag Solutions, leading the field.
Thank you again, Karen, for your words and just being a constant support to students. We now have another raffle, well, 2 more raffles for 2 Amazon $50 gift cards. And the winners are Emily Coleman and Isaac Lopez. So if you guys won, make sure you email Donna Packard, who sent her email in the chat, or private chatter. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Riley, and congratulations to our second raffle winners. So now we're going to begin with our panelist discussion. We are so grateful for each of our speakers for coming today and sharing their experiences with diversity and innovation within the food and agriculture industry. So each of our speakers will briefly introduce themselves, and then we will begin our discussion. So we will start first with Miss Secretary Karen Ross.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Karen Ross. I'm Secretary of Food and Agriculture for the great state of California. Is this the 3-minute intro I'm supposed to do? I'm sorry. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I did not get out of the way. Giselle, thank you so much for asking me to come speak. I owed her because she came and spoke to one of our state board meetings a couple of months ago, and it was a great program, so thank you. I grew up on a farm in Western Nebraska, and my picture of agriculture was from that farm where I tell everybody you can see Wyoming. It's very different than California. And Karen Watts said something that has been about my life. You cannot aspire to something you've never seen or had someone take the time to acquaint you with. And I knew growing up that I did not want to be in agriculture because my view was just that little farm there in Western Nebraska. And by just a set of circumstances, I got introduced to politics and the important role of public policy and how it impacts agriculture. It impacts the bottom line, it impacts people's expectations of ag, everything about it. And it was also at that point that I realized something was missing from my soul. And it was a connection back to where I came from and the values that I got from growing up in a farming community, with a community that helped take care of me, that supported my dad after my mom died, and they helped raise my 3 younger brothers and me as a community. That's what I missed. And there is no way I could have ever thought getting into politics, public policy, working nighttime to get my degree over 7.5 years, that I would ever have a road that would bring me to California. And here's the other thing I'm going to share with you. You can't aspire to the jobs in California because everybody in the Midwest thinks that's what agriculture is about. And what we have, the diversity, the productivity, the innovation, the market responsiveness of what we grow and how we grow it here is unique across the country, and it's unique around the globe. So I'm convinced that what we do here can really inform what we do around the globe to meet food security needs in a changing climate, and doing it better and smarter because of what we have here. I had no idea that agriculture was like it is here, or that there was agriculture at all. I thought it was beaches and Hollywood, to be truthful. And how lucky am I that I get to be a part of this great industry to do the job that we do every day. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. And thank you for inviting me. It means a lot to me. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ross. Okay, our next speaker is going to be Ms. Justin Traub.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. My name's Justin Trabue. I'm still based out of San Luis Obispo. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., so ag really wasn't on my mind until I found Cal Poly. I came out here to study wine and viticulture, and in my second year, I had an amazing opportunity to go up and work up in Davenport at our Swan Pacific Ranch, which unfortunately was burned this last year. And that was really my first opportunity getting my hands dirty. I learned to ride a tractor up there. And over the course of an entire summer, I helped to put together irrigation systems. So since then, I've really totally immersed myself within agriculture. I've had the opportunity to go abroad and study in Australia. And that's when I really, truly realized I wanted to get more into the winemaking side of things. After that, I came back and did my very first harvest down in Santa Barbara County at a really amazing winery called Lumen Wines. I started off as their cellar rat, and about 5 years later, I'm their assistant winemaker. So I feel really blessed to be where I am. I also just recently started a supervisor position at another family-owned winery here in Santa Margarita called Ancient Peaks Winery. And other than that, I've been drinking a lot of great wines, making new friends, finding community, and making sure that Black lives are being understood and heard within the wine industry.
Thank you so much, Ms. Trabue. Okay, our next speaker is Miss Patricia Carrillo.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Patricia Carrillo. I guess professionally, I'm the executive director of ALBA, the Agriculture and Land-Based Training Association in Salinas, California. Personally, I am just a kid from East Salinas that grew up in East Salinas and still lives in East Salinas to this day. And I have to say a little background on this, that I want to thank Giselle for inviting me to speak today. And our little shared story is that I actually met Giselle, though I'm sure she doesn't remember me, back in 2006 at Alba when her mom would bring her to farm. Her mom was a farmer in our program, and she is one of the alumni that I, remember a lot. She was just a great person, and she was very strong, woman and, magnificent female farmer and role model. So yeah, I was really excited when I got this invitation from her. I grew up in Salinas. I was born and raised here. My parents were farm workers. My father worked in the fields for over 45 years. I think that just our agriculture and farm work was very important to me just because I saw their struggles as I was growing up, and also just hearing about their struggles when they were younger, especially my father. So when he was very small, their father left the family and he had to become the father of the family. So I kind of heard about his struggles. He couldn't go to school. He stopped going to school when he was about 10 years old because he had to be a pillar for his family and help everybody out. So that really was huge to me. And I guess as I was growing up, the most important thing for him was for his daughters to get an education and, to really try their best and try to succeed in life because he never had that opportunity. So I think all along I knew that I wanted to help. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. So that's one thing that I think is important, that, we don't all grow up knowing what we want to do in life. I think I still don't know what I want to do in life. I knew that I wanted to help, and I guess I would hear about injustices that were going on just because of the exposure to pesticides and, a lot of things that were happening around his job. My grandma also worked in agriculture. Most of my family did as well. Hearing things about them having to go back into to work in the fields after pesticides were applied was tough, and they had no say in that. And I guess I have to say I had a plan, and I wanted to go to Stanford. I was going to go to Stanford. I was, AP, one of 3 Latino Hispanic students in AP classes. And unfortunately, I guess, there was a lot of exposure that was going on at work, and my dad ended up getting really sick, got terminal cancer and passed away like my junior year. Well, when I was on vacation, I was about to enter my senior year. So that kind of derailed what I was going to do. But, you know, I stuck with it because I had this really strong feeling about, you know, this is important, and then education is important to me. So instead of kind of giving up and going down, you know, I guess a lot of bad paths that were around me, just because I did live, you know, in East Salinas, there's a lot of gang activity. I just kept kind of strong and went to a different school. I went to San Jose State so that I could be around or be close to my mom and, you know, help take care of the family. But continued on, you know, going to school and, you know, just trying to stand up for those values that I learned while I was growing up. So yeah, so I came to Alba in 2006, and I think that I landed in the perfect place. Alba in English means dawn, so it's a new beginning, and I felt that it was a new beginning for myself and a new beginning for everybody who's going through the program. Yeah, I've been there for a while. I left for a bit and I came back as executive director. That was nothing that I ever imagined, but yeah, I never imagined that I would end up there after I started as I was executive assistant, admin assistant. So yes, you can do everything that you set your mind to, as long as you have those goals and just pursue and keep on going.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Carrillo. Okay, our next speaker to introduce themselves will be Dr. Surendra Dara.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Aspire to Grow team, for inviting me and to share my thoughts on this platform. Very great to be a part of this. I grew up in a small town in southern India and went to another small town for my bachelor's and master's studies. So my horizon was very narrow, knew nothing more than my language, my culture, and everything related to that small part of southern India. Then life took me for my PhD to the United States. Then I chose to leave after that. But again, life took me to different places. I worked in West Africa, then in Canada, and came back to the United States again. And except for my current job, everything else was not my choice. It just happened. You know, I had no agriculture background. My father was a lawyer, so you know, my objective was to just study and you know, just go from there. But I found my current job, or I find my current job as the best career option I have made, because I chose to work for Cooperative Extension, and this is the best one of my many jobs I have had in my career, because I can work with farmers on practical solutions. And this job or this entomology or agricultural career took me to more than 40 countries. I worked in probably 12 countries, both for my job and as a volunteer. And I don't think I would have done that if I had some other job. So I really enjoy what I do, and being part of food production that everybody requires to survive is a very rewarding experience. And particularly my research focus is sustainable agriculture, integrated pest management, and non-chemical alternatives. So that also gives me additional satisfaction that I'm positively contributing to the society and food production around the world. And you know, that's briefly about my career. But you know, if you look at the topic of this is like diversity and so on. So I have an identity crisis. I grew up in India. I am ethnically an Indian, but for more than half of my life, I lived in other places. I speak English more than my native language. I like Thai food and some Italian food. And so who am I? You know, I don't know who I am, but you know, but my objective has always been to be fair and work with everybody who needs our help, and carry out the mission of any organization or any company I work for. So thank you again for inviting me to be a part of this.
Thank you, Dr. Dara. And our last introduction is Dr. Mashiri.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And I want to thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. My name is Fadzai Mashiri. I'm a livestock and natural resources advisor with UC Cooperative Extension in the Central Valley. I cover 2 counties, Merced and Mariposa. And I'm also a county director in Mariposa County. So I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I was born by 2 teachers who, growing up, really stressed the importance of education. So since I was young, I always thought I really wanted to go to at least college. So how I really ended up in ag is just like what, now I can't remember your name, Patricia was talking about, that sometimes when you are young, you really don't know what you want to do. But I grew up in an environment where my grandparents and my parents had small pieces of land, had animals roaming around, and I was kind of drawn to really trying to understand how we can improve our production. So I feel like that's what really got me to want to be interested in agriculture. And for my bachelor's, I actually studied animal science. And interestingly, I was the only girl in my class to really major in animal science. Most of the girls did agronomy, economics, but I was just drawn to animal science, and I didn't shy away from following my passion and just go for it. The reason why I'm saying this is not to say I was special or anything, but just to share with you guys that if you want to do something, you don't necessarily have to follow the crowd. Go for what you want. So that's what happened there. And when I graduated, I taught a little bit high school level. And then I got into extension, which is something that I was really interested in because I was exposed to what extension work does when I was in college. And I feel like this field, especially in ag related fields, is something that we don't really get to hear as a career when we are in school. We really are not exposed to what they do. But I think I was lucky enough to really get to meet people that shared with us about what extension work is really about. And what really attracted me to it was the aspect of being able to really address real life situations that communities are dealing with, and taking that education that you had and really applying and working with them. And for me, the most interesting thing is also learning from the communities or from the people that are actually doing the work on the ground. I feel like I've learned so much from them. As an undergraduate student graduating, you feel like, okay, I have learned all this knowledge and I'm going to teach these people that are on the ground, local farmers, what do they really know? But well, within a few years, I really, really appreciated the fact that these people have been doing it for a long time. They've been successful because they know something about what they are doing. So what I can do is to come with my education, partner with them, and then with this local knowledge that they have and with the experience that they have doing the practices that they've been doing, we can uplift each other and actually do better things together, not necessarily me going down and just teaching them what they don't know. So that was like an evolution of my love for extension work. So that's where it started. And honestly, that's what landed me here. So after that, one of the things that I went through when I graduated my bachelor's degree, I felt like I was done with school. I had done my 3 years at university. In my country, we did 3 years. at university, and I was done and I was ready to start my life. But the moment I started working with these farmers, it was so apparent to me that there was so much more that I needed to learn. Really, the interaction between me as an academic and them, how can we really improve this relationship? And also just widening my understanding of the field that I studied. So I ended up going to Norway to study natural resources management and sustainable agriculture, which was an eye-opener for me. Not only in terms of the education that I got, but it was an international program where I got to meet people from all parts of the world, and I really started to appreciate and really enjoy just learning from other people's cultures and their cuisine and all these things. So that's where for me it really started to really be interested in diversity and really understanding and valuing and appreciating other people's cultures. So, and then after that, I went back home and taught at university, and then ended up coming here to do my PhD in rangeland management at the University of Arizona. And at the back of my mind, even with my PhD, I just wanted to go into that area where I did applied research, where I did more on the ground, real solution work, and that's where that's how I ended up here. So I'm just excited to be here, and there's so much that we do that involves diversity, not only within the organization itself, but the clientele that we work with in so many different aspects, which I guess we'll be discussing as we go along. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much to all of you for sharing your stories. We'll briefly move into our panel discussion, but before we have another raffle. So can I get a drum roll, please? Pretend you're drum rolling. Yeah, there we go. So a winner for our $25 Amazon gift card is Danny Lego. And then another drum roll because we have 2 Amazon gift cards. There we go. Our second winner is Noah Rance. So please make sure to reach out or chat Donna Packard and claim your prizes. So congratulations. Now we will be moving into our panel discussion, starting off with our first question. And we'll start off with Secretary Karen Ross. So our first question is, how has innovation in your organization been shaped by a commitment to diversity?
Well, in government structures, we're very lucky that I have a very diverse workforce. We have a lot of scientists who come from many different parts of the world, and I think that's been very helpful. Also, some of our innovations have been because of the travel. I've taken delegations to a number of other countries to learn from one another. It gets very easy in California to think we've got all the solutions because we're so big and so diverse, and we're blessed with the university systems that we have. And so that's also helped to inform us. And I just have to say, listening to the speakers, I think we all saw how food is this common denominator. It brings us together. And that's one of the first ways that many of us learn to truly appreciate different cultures is food, no matter where you go, brings you together. And so I'm always mindful of that. But I would have to say, one of the needs for diversity is diversity of thought and perspective. And that's been something that I built my career on, is always looking around to say, who's not at this table that should be part of this discussion to inform us, whether it's in new innovative pest management strategies. We just did a forum a week ago in partnership with USDA on sterile insect technologies, whether it's around our climate smart agriculture programs that we're thinking about the 5-acre farmer where English is not their first language, as well as the 10,000-acre grower. You know, that sometimes that becomes the one that helps bring in even more diversity into your conversation. So you have to be intentional about it. And those are just a couple of examples of how we've done it. But I have to close with the most recent one that's really fun, and that is working with the first partner on a passion project for her, which is improving the offering of what school children get in their feeding programs to better connect school nutrition directors with our farmers with an emphasis on small, historically underserved farmers being able to make those connections to really improve the nutritious offering to our schools. And we created this program after doing interviews with school nutrition directors, teachers, and administrators. And next week, we're doing roundtables with students, because it doesn't matter if we think it's great. If they don't think it's great, it won't get consumed, and then it doesn't make a difference. So it's really thinking about the broadest definition of diversity, and diversity of thought is an important one to start with.
Great, thank you so much, Secretary Ross. Mrs. Chabot, what do you think about that question?
So the world of wine has always been a very much so majority white male dominated industry. So over these last 7 years, I've worked really hard to be able to find my own community. The first person that I ever met within wine was a Black sommelier based out of Washington, DC. And being able to see someone that looked like me work in wine was one of the most incredible experiences ever. And they're the reason I applied for where I went to school, go Cal Poly. And over this last year, after the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Tony McDade and so many others, myself and one of my friends who also works in the local SLO community, her name is Simone Mitchelson, we came out with a call to action to our local wine industry, because there was very little response to everything that happened in 2020. So we basically made a call to action, and we reached out to our local industry to see ways in which they were going to make real change, make real differences, and be the best allies that they could be. And the responses we had were incredible. We put a foundation for Race Matters SLO, which is a local grassroots organization here in San Luis Obispo, and we were able to raise about $15,000 towards that program, which was amazing. Other than that, I've also gotten to help with a new BIPOC scholarship for Cal Poly, and that's for people entering Cal Poly in any year, and it's within the School of Agriculture, wine specific. And through this program, we hope to be able to create mentorships and create relationships with the local wineries out here, as well as pay for your 4 years of college, which is really important and really helpful, because college isn't cheap. So any ways in which people can help is always nice. Other than that, I just recently came out with a really cool nonprofit called Natural Action Wine Club, and all of the money and proceeds from that nonprofit are going to go towards this BIPOC scholarship. And through that, we're also going to be providing educational experiences about natural wines. And one of the biggest things that we're about is sustainability, not only in the winemaking, but in the treatment of employees, from the vineyards to the wineries to the tasting room and beyond. So just always making sure to be sustainable and be able to put people first over companies. I think that's it.
How has innovation in your organization been shaped by a commitment to diversity?
Giselle, yeah, your mic cut out for a little bit. If you want to restate the question.
Yeah, sorry about that, Zoom technology. So, Ms. Carrillo, how has innovation in your organization been shaped by a commitment to diversity?
So we are, let's see, so we're actually a nonprofit organic farm incubator. We're training socially disadvantaged farmers, primarily Spanish speakers, to become farm owners. And they're starting out on as little as half an acre farms. So innovation for us is a little bit different. It's focused around our service delivery and how that's culturally appropriate and relevant. So really what we've tried to do is use things that are more convenient to the farmers that we serve, like computer apps, phone apps. We use a remind text system. So we talk to the farmers and figure out like what works best for them. If I'm sending out an event reminder, or if I'm sending out, some important information that they need to know, how are they going to get it? And, they like text. So we use this event reminder, and everything that we send out is bilingual. Same for all of our programming workshops, our farmer education course, everything is bilingual. It's in English and Spanish. So we either do, depending on who the speaker is, we either do English or Spanish presentations, and we have simultaneous interpretation. And we have an interpreter that we contract with that's just basically doing all of that for us. So it's a lot easier because we have the same person who she's really good, and she understands the terms. You know, sometimes I think that's where the translation gets lost. I hated, I guess, throughout the years going to conferences where I would listen into the Spanish and I had no idea what they were saying. Like, I couldn't understand the terms. So there was no way that the farmers could understand, or, you know, either the terms or the translation, because there's so many variations of Spanish, right? You know, we try to do that. Other things that we do are offering like infographics instead of just words, and us talking or showing, or, you know, showing them slides. Infographics, like, what are these things that are most important? What documents do you need to have? What does the food safety certificate look like? What does your CCOF certificate look like for organic registration? You know, these are the things that you should have with you. I guess the other part is just, which, you know, I've really been a big part of since coming on. Every single person that I've hired on is bilingual, Spanish, English speaker. And, you know, they have their, you know, local, they have a connection to food or agriculture, some personal background, so that they understand, you know, where farmers are coming from. I think that's the most important thing, like building those communication channels and relationships. And I think that's also been one of the hardest things to see. You know, it's difficult when you're trying to communicate with somebody, or, you know, a farmer might have a frustration and they feel that they're trying to talk to somebody who doesn't speak the language, and it all gets lost in that translation. Yeah, if you have somebody who speaks your language and who understands, they're going to try to be more accommodating. I guess the other thing is just continuing to encourage people to include their family members. So that's one of the areas that we've gotten into as far as programming is workforce development, and you know, not just for the farmer that's picking up additional skills that might not want to farm, but will go back into the workforce and maybe get a supervisor job or a better job, but also for their kids. And we see that a lot. They're coming in, they're helping. A lot of them are working, you know, farmers markets now, or they're helping to actually, you know, manage the farm and work on the farm. A lot of them are doing marketing for their parents, or they're taking care of the food safety paperwork. So that's the way that we've tried to include them, actually not only providing assistance and training to the farmer, but to their family as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And from personal experience, I can say that Alba did a great job of including everyone in the family, because I was out there picking vegetables with my parents a couple of years ago too. Thank you so much for your input. Dr. Surendra Dara, what's your input on that question?
Very good. For me, not for me, actually, diversity has two angles. One is a diversity of people, and the second one is diversity of experiences or expertise, or like Secretary Ross mentioned, it is the thought. So if we are talking about people, compared to 12 years ago when I joined Cooperative Extension, we have a very diverse group of advisors. And we all are productive, and we all are contributing to providing solutions. So we continue to contribute to that innovation. Then the second part is the diversity of expertise. That is an inherent, it is an essential element of research in general, right? You know, you need to have, whenever you want to provide a solution, you need expertise from different people. For example, in agriculture, we want to address something, then you need an irrigation specialist, an entomologist, plant pathologist, agronomist, and agricultural engineer. Everybody has to work together. And there, it does not matter what you know, ethnic background they have. So it is all about expertise. So, you know, with those things, you know, we continue to explore the potential of everybody. When we put together these proposals, when we develop these research projects, we always have to look at who fits well into providing that solution. And then it is even the RFPs ask for people representing different areas. So for a university or an academic institution or an organization, like Cooperative Extension, diversity is part of the survival. So, we always make sure that there is diversity in the way we provide solutions and the diversity in everything we do.
Giselle, your mic is cutting out again. And so just restate what you said.
Oh man, always wants to cut me out, huh? Thank you, Dr. Surendra Dara. Now we'll hear from Dr. Mashiri.
Okay, being from the same organization as Surendra, I guess I don't have to restate what is said about diversity within the institution. So for me, the way I look at it in terms of diversity, it's like the internal constitution of UCANR or UC Cooperative Extension. Just like what Surendra mentioned, there's been so much effort into ensuring that there is diverse ethnicities and all these classes represented within our community of advisors, staff, as well as volunteers. But one of the things that I can also mention in terms of volunteers is one of the really effort that has been put is to ensure that some of our volunteer programs involve people paying so they can actually be trained to help in these programs. But we also realize that there are people that are interested in volunteering, let's say our Master Gardener program or our California Naturalist program, which is an amazing program as well. There is financial constraints that can actually limit people that do not have enough money to pay for this. So we have really tried as an organization to come up with programs or ways that we can help people, low-income members of the community that are interested in being part of these programs, being involved in the training and actually volunteering. And also sometimes not even looking at there was this conversation about people that want to volunteer and they come to us and they're like, I have a kid who goes to school, so I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough time to put in the 50 hours that you want me to put, but I'm really interested in the program. Or I work part-time, so, and then because we interviewed them, there's sentences that sometimes we may say, from our own perspectives, how can this person even be able to put in the time that we want them to put in to be successful as a volunteer in this program? But we have gotten to a place where we realize we don't have to cut them off before they try. If they're interested, let them get in the program, let them get trained, and then as time goes along, they can either realize they can't really put in the time that is required to satisfy and remain in this program or not. But the most important thing is they gained that knowledge through the training. So essentially, even if they are not going to put in the training as a valuable volunteer for the program, they can also educate the communities and their family members in the process. So just being open to those small processes in our programs, I think has really opened up and enabled more diversity in our volunteer programs as well. But also, I think the other really important part of diversity with UCANR is our clientele diversity is actually mandated for us. We are supposed to meet a certain percentage of population that we serve and really demonstrate that we're making a lot of effort to include as many diverse demographics as we can. So that is really important for us, mandated by USDA because we are a federal funded program partially as well. So that has been really important. And the other way I've also thought about really talking about diversity today is about the needs, the size of the let's say farms that we serve, we can either serve like large scale farms. I mean, as an advisor, you would feel that if I go and work with a large rancher, for example, for me, I would make more impact there. But there are also these small scale farmers that are starting to get into agriculture. They really need the knowledge. How can we also include them in our program so that we can educate them, potentially grow into large scale farmers, but also they play a part in managing the lands that we have. And I just want to share some of the like innovative programs that I have come from advisors really thinking about the diversity and how important it is to kind of cover everyone and their concerns in the fields that we cover. For example, there's one of the livestock advisors that we work with, Stephanie Larson, who is based in Sonoma. She came up with this Match.Grace program, where after, I think we all are familiar with the issue of the wildfires in California right now. After realizing how devastating the fire has been, we have realized that we need to push grazing, especially in small land honored by people. And most of these people cannot really sustain a herd of animal on maybe 5 acres or 10 acres. So what she came up with was to actually develop this program that matches people with land and people with animals so they can come and graze and hopefully reduce fire risk on some of these small scale farms. So it's almost like taking care of these situations or circumstances that we as advisors, we may overlook because they are too small to really work with. They don't have livestock on their land, so why are we really talking to them? And then also understanding the economic situation of the farmers. One of the projects that I was involved with was really to control a weed that grows on our rangelands, medusaid. And there was research that was done before which recommended high rates of an herbicide to be applied to really reduce this weed. But so many ranchers shared with us that there is no way the cost of those high rates were cost inhibitive. So there was no way they could actually be able to use this as a tool to control the medusa, though they wanted to. So we did this research where we changed the season in which we were applying this herbicide, and we actually managed to find a way of reducing the herbicide rate of application to a third of what originally was recommended by just changing the season from pre-emergent application to spring application. So when you really listen and listen to the needs of these communities and try to address their issues, that's when I feel like innovation that really improves or promotes sustainable management and also uptake of the recommendations that we come, or uptake of the innovation that we come up with really happens. So there's a lot of all these different nuanced recommendations that are developed by diverse advisors who work with, let's say, grape farmers. They're coming up with technologies where they can mechanically actually trim the grapes on large farms. But when it comes to small farms systems, which are integrated with so many different crops on the same plot, you can't really do the same thing. So it's really being able to listen and come up with advice or recommendations or innovations that suit the different clientele that we work with.
Awesome, thank you. So Giselle, thank you for leading topic 1, and thank you to the panel for your thoughts. Topic 2, we're going to start with, and you guys seem to have already answered the question in your first response, but the question for topic 2 would be, how would you describe your organization's philosophy related to diversity, equity, and inclusion? But the question we would like you guys to now answer is, how have you personally been impacted by your current or former company's commitment to diversity? And Patricia, we're going to start with you on this one.
There we go. Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself for a second there. Personally, well, I think personally, I've been impacted in a huge way, right? Like I said, I'm now the executive director of ALBA. I think there's, for a while, I have to say, for a while, our board of directors felt that our executive director needed to be an ag major. And I'm not an ag major, I'm a business major. So I think they had a shift there in thinking, and that's when I got invited to come back and try to run this organization. You know, luckily it's been going really well these past 4 years now. We were having, you know, a hard time for a while, and we've stabilized and we have a really good team now. I think just me personally, just because of my background, I've tried to get a little bit more involved in some of these things on a more of try to build you know, more networks and work with people within the state. So I work very closely with our partners. We actually, well, I'm part of the California Farmer Justice Collaborative, and I have been working with some partners, so BIPOC-led organizations. After COVID hit, we knew that a lot of the farmers were impacted, and there was no available funding to help them with some of their crop losses, or, you know, some of the losses because they either lost a lot of labor or had COVID and had medical bills, or, you know. So we created a fund to help people of color, and we got foundations to donate about $600,000-$700,000, and those were we actually created a process to distribute those funds, and really the way that we just completely worked, that was very different. So the first round of funding, we had 2 rounds of funding. The first round of funding, we actually made it by invitation only. So we contacted farmers that we knew had experienced hardships within our 6 different networks, basically, and we contacted them and nominated them to apply for a grant, and you know, kind of left it up to them to say what they needed. And these were not you know, small grants. It was anywhere up to $20,000, which is huge. Just if you compare, you know, what was available, or that no funding was available to some of them. And you know, for the second round, what we decided to do was kind of spark that philanthropy and that sense of community within them. So we actually let the farmers that received grants in the first round nominate another farmer to receive the second grant and that funding. So give them that power to help others, and to, you know, I guess, take it to the next level. It's not all about, you know, us trying to dictate the way that we should fund or the way that we should help, but, you know, they can also make those decisions themselves. I think, you know, another thing that is important to me is just trying to build the community within ALBA, the farmers and the staff. So we try to do, you know, it's a little hard now, though. We have continued to do some things, but we try to do like posadas with the farmers annually, so that they can come and bring their families, and then the staff comes and bring their families. So there's more inclusion that way. And, you know, other events. And this year we had to do like a little walk through tamales posada, so people would come in and get some tamales, and then you know, spread out and then, leave. Same with graduation. And that's another thing, I guess, that I didn't mention before in innovation. So right now our farmer education course is completely taught online. And that's something that we've never done. And then if you take into account that we have monolingual Spanish speakers for the most part, a lot of them are farm workers. They're not very used to using this type of technology like Zoom or Google Classrooms. So we've been doing a lot of training, and luckily it's been working out well. And yeah, we'll continue to do that. We actually just distributed some iPads to the farmers to use for their businesses, and we're going to do some trainings on that as well. Yeah, I think that covers it.
Awesome. Thank you. COVID really has affected everyone, and you did an amazing job of still giving back. So we're going to continue with that question. And Justin, if you would like to answer or piggyback off anything Patricia has said.
Yeah. All right. So community philosophies on diversity, equity, inclusion work shouldn't only include BIPOC employees. It should also make sure to include non-binary and trans employees, and making sure that they feel safe in their work environments. The reason that companies chose you is for you. So make sure to be your true self and to hold your own space. I just also wanted to mention that it's not only on the employees to do the work, it's up to the employees to make sure that they're making safe and non-toxic work cultures and work environments. Everybody makes mistakes, but it's up to you, and it's important to make sure to fix those mistakes and be the best you can be, and to learn from them and to educate yourself consistently. I think it's really important to make sure to support Black businesses and BIPOC businesses all year round, not just during specific months. It's important to make sure to constantly and consistently bring money within these communities and to be able to give back. It is definitely up to white people to do the work of educating themselves. Don't rely on your BIPOC friends and coworkers and employees to do that work for you. If you need advice, ask questions, but also educate yourself. I think it's really important. Understand that Blackness and being a BIPOC or trans or non-binary is not a monolith, and every person is different, and every person has their own histories and their own stories. You just got to ask questions and create those connections. And then for these work environments, make sure that we're not set up to fail. Make sure that we're set to be in great inclusive environments. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. So Secretary Karen Ross, it's now up to you for the question. How have you personally been impacted by your current or former company's commitment to diversity?
My most personal experience happened while I was Chief of Staff at the United States Department of Agriculture. It was when, through a series of events as a result of a doctored video, that Secretary Vilsack fired an African-American rural development director from the state of Georgia. And so that really sank in with me about how important it is to really be very mindful and intentional about everything that's happening around you. And that's why I have just embraced the governor's, it's not just a tagline, it is a philosophy for state government, and that is California for all. And more than a year and a half ago, he provided training for his entire cabinet and all agency directors about equity and racism, and how do we build filters, because Justin's right, it is the job of white people to do this work. And when I asked our employees, which was a very diverse group of employees this summer, the George Floyd incident really moved me in very emotional ways, but I didn't want to be putting out a statement for CDFA. I wanted it to be a statement that reflected the employees, and we acknowledged the systemic racism in agriculture. And that is part of what I learned at USDA, is just how institutionalized racism is, and how important it is for us all to learn how to have the filters to be able to see it and acknowledge it, and then take steps to address it through our own personal pathways as well as professionals. So we now have one of the earliest cohorts in a state program for the capital cohort on racial equity, that we will be training all of our employees, because we're out in the communities and we get so used to doing things because that's the way they've always been done. or that's the way the program was built. And we want to train all of our employees to have those filters out and to be aware that this could be just institutionalizing even more systemic racism. And so that's been very important for me to help get this cohort started. We're going to have speaker series to really educate ourselves within our own division, and to really take the findings of our first ever farmer equity report to make sure that we're understanding how boards and commissions, if you're not intentionally out there recruiting diversity, it won't happen. But to really understand equity and equality are not the same, and to be as inclusive as we possibly can be. Those are the kinds of things that we're trying to just institutionalize to create a new and better way of doing outreach and services to all the people that we serve and all the people that we want to serve and the people who work for the Department of Food and Agriculture.
Thank you, Secretary Karen Ross. So, Dr. Marshiri, this question is still on you. What are your thoughts on the topic?
In terms of how at least UCNI has kind of influenced has impacted me, just like what everybody else is talking about. I think because of the events of summer 2020, so many organizations are kind of looking within and trying to figure out how can we respond and actually do a better job at being open to diversity, not necessarily just being open to it, but being able to appreciate and actually celebrate it. So ANA, just like all the organizations, is in the initial stages of forming a DI advisory council for our vice president. And fortunately, I happen to be one of the people that are on that council, was nominated to be on that council. And I'm learning a lot. I am a minority, I'm Black, I'm not even from this country, but these issues, just like what Karen was talking about, it's not like we really know the impacts and how to respond and how to express ourselves. We are all in this learning, all of us are we really learning. Being a minority doesn't make you an expert on how we can solve these issues. So I'm really excited to be part of this program and being able to put in our systems for ANA and procedures that we can actually be able to implement and increase diversity within our community. And we also hope with this effort, we can also look outwards to our clientele on how can we serve them even better? How can we be more responsive to the diversity of the clientele that we serve? So I'm really excited about this, at least change in the way we do things and the change in which we intend to interact, or even like the change in which we recruit advisors or recruit employees within ANA, as well as how can we retain them after we have recruited them, because that's the most important part for us to create an environment which is conducive for people to really want to stick around and feel like they belong. And the other way ANI has also kind of changed and introduced, they've introduced training, implicit bias training for ANI. And I still crack myself. I did this training here with my kids, of course, during the pandemic. And one of the questions, one of the assignments that this implicit bias asked of me was to draw a scientist. And here I am drawing a white male person with a lab coat. And after I was done, I'm like, I am a scientist. I don't even think about it that way. So to me, what really stuck with me, or what struck me, was sometimes we feel like when we are talking about bias, it's something really negative that is buried within us. But it's like this minor visions or things that we've grown up with that have really shaped the way we think. Some of them are not even negative in a way, just like the example I gave, but it just shows if something like that can happen to a person who is a scientist, but they can't even think, when the first thing that comes to your mind is this idea of something that maybe you saw in kindergarten, for example, and it has stuck with you all this time. So it really just opened my eyes to understanding that bias is admitting that in implicit bias exists, is not saying that we are bad people, but really understanding that this the way we think is impacted by the way we live day-to-day life. And just really identifying with those simple things may really lead us to understand that we might have a little bit of bias that we really need to think through when we are looking at other people. And the other way that I also want to look at it is, it's not necessarily thinking about these mandated groups or like what's your culture, what's the skin of your color, but just thinking about the diversity. Let's say the diversity in your family. If someone tells you that they are going to treat you like this because your sister did this or because your sister is this, you would not even want to be told that, because you would tell them that I am an individual and I am not my sister. So because of just understanding that each person, even growing up within the same family, we are different. If we can just open our minds to understanding that we can't put this image on everybody that is this culture, for example, or that belongs to this group. So really opening our eyes to wanting to know an individual and just learning from each other and being open-minded and learning from each other is what really all this whole idea about DEI and implicit bias and just trying to learn as much as I can has opened my eyes. Not so if everybody else can learn about me because I'm Black, but it really is opening me up to really wanting to know and understand how can we all as individuals really improve the way we interact and respect and celebrate each other as individuals. I think if it starts from that perspective, we are really going to go a long way in improving the way we all live. So
Thank you, Dr. Moshiri. That was very powerful thoughts on being biased and continuing to learn. Dr. Dara, your final thoughts on how you've been impacted.
Definitely, and everybody covered it very well. And in general, what I want to say is that all organizations want to have good policies about DEI related issues. Everybody wants to do good, but how much it is implemented depends on so many factors. If you look at the UC itself, it has so many campuses and so many units, and it's impossible to implement all the policies equally in every location. So I won't be able to comment on that. But individually, within my program, what I have done is always, and in general, everybody has to do and does the same thing. Like you have to look at the qualifications when you are recruiting someone. Do they have the experience and training that fits well with the position description? And that is how we do it. But within my program, I have had many Caucasians, Hispanics, and Asian Americans. And then I currently have someone from Benin, West Africa, and I had an Indian and a Japanese and Iranian. So within the last few years, I already had, like a very good example of diversity about who is working with me. But how it impacts me as an individual or as an employee, it is not going to change immediately. Let us be honest. Like, bias, or that implicit bias, as the name suggests, it is implicit, and it is a biological nature. Everybody has that. It is very natural to orient with some people, but at the same time, you also have to realize if a particular group is known to be troublesome, the group members know you don't want to affiliate with them. So there is that aspect too. Like, it is not always that someone is always orienting with a particular group. You also know that if I belong to a group and I know that our people are not easy, then I might not want to affiliate with them. So, it is like everybody else is saying, like, we have to look beyond that what you see. It has to be about the experience. What are their work ethics and how well they work with everybody and how well they can provide the solution. That should be the key. And then, it took centuries to get this far and then fall down. So I'm not expecting anything to have, I am not expecting any dramatic change, but the awareness is important for all of us. Like, respect everybody, treat everybody fairly. And then the level of education in terms of awareness, it is not academic education, but the knowledge of these situations in a country or in a region actually help to do better. Like, if we compare US with other countries, this is far better, no matter what you hear, what you see. I mean, being from a different country and traveling to different places and continuously seeing what is happening around the world, I can still say that this is the best place. You may disagree with me based on some experiences or some news that you see, but I can tell you. So we are far advanced in the US than many people, but the differences we see are natural, but we just have to learn to surpass those things and move forward towards a common goal.
Thank you guys so much. That was some great discussion for our second topic. So we have about 15 minutes before we're going to hear from our next speaker. So we'll just kind of briefly touch on this last topic. And this is kind of switching gears, and we're going to talk a little bit about, our current situation, the COVID pandemic. And so the last question is, what advice can you offer our Cal Poly community to ensure that we are engaging effectively for our changing workplace? So Dr. Dara, we're actually going to start with you again. So take it away.
Thank you. So in general, for Cal Poly or every one of us, the first thing I would like to say is dream. We have to dream. This entire topic is about aspire to grow. You never stop. So that has been my goal, even though I never reached where I want to go, but I never stop dreaming, because that is very important for us to aspire to get to next place and have that hope and work towards that. Then other things related to enhancing the work experience for a better work environment are, the first thing would be respecting everyone. We have to have that no matter what, we have to respect others regardless of there is no point, just respect others. That's the important thing. Then we have to ask questions. When we have to provide a solution or complete a task, we have to ask the question of how best can I do this? Or why am I doing like this, and what else can improve what I do, or the solution, and how can or what can improve my client's conditions. So we should never stop asking questions for what we do, and also if there is anything that is incorrectly or inappropriate, we have to question that too. That question is not about our performance, about the overall system. So that questioning is another one. And then being creative and being productive are very important. We have to think creatively, because time is less, resources are fewer, but work continues to grow. So we always have to be creative and doing more for what we have. So that's very important. And then one important aspect is we have to expand our horizon and think globally. It is no longer a country or a community. We live in the world. World now is like a global family. the food we eat, the clothes we wear, and the items we use are not a product of an individual effort. It has a global impact. And at the same time, everything we do has a global impact too. The pollution we create or the positive things we do for the environment or for the people have a global impact too. So we cannot restrict ourselves to that tunnel vision. We have to really think globally, because this in the modern age, like everything is, the world is a big family. And finally, we have to take care of our health. I am telling you this from my own experience, because when you are focused so much on your career, you ignore certain things. Health and family are also very important, and we have to remember to live happily. So these are some basic things I have to share about this.
Thank you so much. That was some great advice. Okay, how about Secretary Ross? Would you like to comment on this? Share your advice?
Well, he said it all. Thank you, Dr. Tara. It's hard to beat that. And I'll pick up on where you left, because self-care is important, and how we think about ourselves and having that confidence and self-esteem carries through on everything that we do and how we touch people. There's a couple of things I want to say. One is, no matter where the trip is, take every advantage to travel that you can, whether it's to a different part of this state or a different part of this country. And very important to seek out opportunities to live and learn and work and enjoy other countries. I just can't say how much that will open your world and your appreciation for this. So I encourage you to take advantage of every one of those opportunities, and just to be curious. Our lives are about lifelong learning and growing and changing for the best. I honestly believe that. And the third one for me, and this comes from my personal philosophy, start every day with gratitude. You've been given this day, really, enjoy it, find moments of joy and find moments to give back. So I'll put in my final plug and think of public service. The Department of Food and Agriculture is a great place to work and to serve the people of this state and increasingly the citizens of the world. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, how about Ms. Carrillo? Do you have any advice to share with us?
Sure, though they've covered pretty much everything. This is the one area you don't want to go last. No, I'm kidding. So my advice, practical advice, I guess, would be to try to take advantage of internship opportunities, work opportunities, any type of opportunities you get to practice the work that you're going to be doing in your field. That's really important. That's what I can tell you. That's what I look for, right, when I'm trying to hire, and that's what everybody looks for. Degrees are great, but the experience is never going to match up to that if you don't know how to do it in real life. It's just very, very complicated. So yeah, try to do that. The other thing is, I guess, don't be afraid of not knowing the answers, and admitting that you don't know the answers. I'm always the first one that will say, like, okay, I'm the one that has the least knowledge in the room. I'm not the ag major here, but my team makes me strong. That's why we're talking about diversity and inclusion, right? So yeah, don't be afraid of not knowing the answer. Don't be afraid of not, doing the right thing. Everybody is different. Don't be afraid of making people uncomfortable. I think that our shared experiences make us stronger as a group. So yeah, don't be afraid of any of that, and believe in yourself. You can achieve anything that you want to do, and nobody can get in our way. I guess our worst enemy is ourselves. So unless we have that confidence in ourselves, then or if we have that confidence in ourselves, we can do whatever we want. And yeah, like they said, just try to enjoy life. It's not all work. Try to enjoy family, find that balance, and take those vacations and take that time. I think, yeah, before I wouldn't do that. And I would accumulate, I would max out vacation, which was just horrible. Take some forced vacation days because you're at that max and you're going to lose your vacation days. That's probably familiar to a lot of people here. And then, you know, there came a point where I just thought, like, no, I mean, it's about enjoying the time now. We don't know how much time we have. So yeah, take advantage of that. Yeah, also try to, I would say, do your part on educating others about the importance of ag. Because I know even today there's a lot of stigma around it. Obviously, you guys are studying agriculture, which is amazing, but there's still a lot of stigmas about it's just field work, it's not important. So yeah, try to educate everybody that you can about why it's so important and why we need agriculture and food, obviously, to make this world keep going.
Thank you. Okay, so we have about 5 more minutes before our next speaker is going to hop on. So Justin, if you have any brief last minute advice, or Dr. Masheri, please feel free to share.
I guess I can go if, so one of the few things that I just want to add is to go for what you really want. Don't be distracted by constraints or what other people are doing or discouraging you to do. What I would just recommend is get as much information about your goals, your dreams, and then go for it and just try. It doesn't really hurt. All that can happen is maybe you realize that's not for you and you can always change directions. One of the things that I really like about the American education system, for example, is the flexibility that comes with it. In Zimbabwe, if you went and studied your bachelor's degree in a certain field and you did like 2 years, you won't be able to just change majors and go to a different major. You would have to go back and start as a freshman in whatever other field you wanted to study. But I really liked when I came here to just realizing the flexibility that comes with the education system, at least at college level, involved. So I would recommend people go for what you really feel like you are interested in, and be flexible as you go along. And just like what everybody else was talking, the internships are really important for you to actually see if you like this field and also in the process learn. So that's another really key thing. And one of the things that I just want to share with everybody is the importance of working in groups of people with different kinds of knowledge. When it comes to expertise, taking that multi or interdisciplinary approach in solving problems is so key in coming up with solutions that are sustainable, especially if you're working with real life issues that you're trying to solve. I can go in and talk to them, to, let's say, a rancher about production of livestock. But if I don't think about the economics part of that solution, it's not going to be a solution that works for them. If I don't think about the environment, for example, it's not going to be a solution that's sustainable there. So really just maybe on your own, but for the most part, I would recommend just bringing in that knowledge and expertise from people. Have a team. Whenever you're trying to resolve, think outside the box that we're trained in, and just try to incorporate or inquire about all the other solutions or all the other perspectives that can actually impact the solution that you, and the issue that you're trying to solve. And just thinking about solutions in terms of, sometimes we feel, okay, we are going to maybe help or address an issue that maybe vulnerable parts of the communities need. But one example that I really like that I learned from UCNI, that is not even related to what I do, but to youth development, where they did this effort where they increased the participation of Latino youth in 4-H And what they actually realized that when they went in there with culturally sensitive approach, they increased participation across the board beyond the Latino youth that they were really focusing on. So the different counties where they went with this Latino initiative, they actually improved participation throughout across the demographics of the youth that way in those counties. So sometimes you feel like you're targeting a community or a group, but you might actually improve the whole community as a result. And the other thing that I just want to talk about is really looking at the satisfaction of people at work, especially when you're at work, doing like work surveys. ANI has implemented this, and I really like that approach because it's almost like really trying and caring about the workforce and understanding what can be done to improve the situation so people probably can be more productive in the process. So.
Great, thank you. And lastly, Ms. Strabu, if you have any final advice to give us?
Yes. So my mom always taught me the importance of surrounding yourself with those that lift you higher. That's not only for friendships, it's for employees, it's for everything. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel disrespected or you feel unwanted, it's time to move. It's time to find something better. It's fine to find companies and cultures that truly appreciate you. So on top of that, finding communities that educate you on new ideas and new perspectives is important. It's really important to constantly find new things. Also, it's really cool to be able to start small. People don't always think about the small impacts, but those are really what makes a difference. At this new job that I just started at, for Halloween, I sent out an email about cultural appropriation. It's as easy as sending out an email and telling people to respect other cultures. That makes that difference. It's, putting non-gendered restroom labels on restrooms so everybody feels included. So also for changing workplaces, I think it's really important to find diverse sessions like this session that we're in today, and making sure that you're finding new ways of impact. There are 2 really cool upcoming sessions that are coming out, and there's one that's called International Winemakers Forum. It's different Black and Indigenous and people of color winemakers from all over the world. It's going to be on Hopin. And then at the end of this month, there's a really cool organization called Radical Exchange Resistance Served, and they're hosting a BIPOC symposium, and it's totally free to attend. And if anyone can go, I highly recommend it. That's it.
Thank you, Justin. And thank you to Kendra and our entire panel. We are now going to be hearing some closing words from our sponsor, Nutrien's Executive Vice President and CEO of Retail, Mike Frank, before our open Q&A.
All right. Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. I guess depending on where you are, it could still be morning. Before I dive in, I do want to take a moment to recognize one of my colleagues that's also on the call here with us today, and I'm going to invite her to participate in the Q&A with me, which is Karen Watts. Many of you know Karen as the chair of the Dean's Industry Advisory Council for the College of Ag, Food, and Environmental Sciences, and one of the organizers of this great event. But she's also a Nutrien employee. And so Karen is an incredible ambassador for Nutrien, for agriculture, and for the importance of diversity and inclusion. And I'm so proud that she was recently recognized as one of Cal Poly's 2020 honored alumni. So Karen, thank you for all that you do. Personally, I really just enjoyed the last conversation, and I thank all the speakers. They were very insightful, and I'm going to learn more from this conversation today, probably than you're going to learn from me. So I really appreciate everyone's comments, and I'm honored to get a chance to connect with you all today. I've got a really short presentation. I'm going to give you a really small introduction to Nutrien, but I do want to spend most of my time talking about the future of agriculture and the need to bring in the best, brightest, and most diverse minds into the ag industry. So let's jump in. If we could go to the next slide. So just 2 quick slides on Nutrien. Nutrien is a company that many of you probably haven't heard of, but it is one of the biggest ag companies in the world. It's a company that has 2 distinct businesses. Firstly, we are the world's largest producer of crop nutrients, also known as fertilizers. And as you probably all know, without crop nutrients, farmers couldn't grow the crops that feed the world. Secondly, we're also the world's largest agricultural retailer. We have about 2,000 company-owned retail stores around the world where we sell farmers the inputs and services that they need to grow their crops. So we sell everything from seed to fertilizer to crop chemicals. We do a lot of services. And we strive to be the farmer's partner, helping her or him reduce risk, be sustainable, maximize yields, and ultimately produce a profit. We operate in about 17 countries around the world, and we have about 22,000 employees. If we could go to the next slide. So that's kind of what we do, but this slide shows who we are and how we operate. So we think of our purpose as growing the world from the ground up. And we lean on our core values of safety and integrity. And we think everything starts from there. In fact, we say that safety is the most important priority at our company, and it's way more important than profits. And so we focus a lot on safety, but we also want to operate at the highest level of integrity. And we also have 4 engagement principles that you can see on this slide, which include inclusion, performance, community, and innovation. And these core values and the engagement principles guide all of our actions. So that's Nutrien at a glance. And I just wanted to give you that quick introduction. If we could go to the next slide. So I grew up on a farm in Saskatchewan, Canada. I've been involved in agriculture my whole life. And I believe there's never been a more exciting time in agriculture than there is today. And look, as you can see on the slide, over the past century, there's been a number of individual technology breakthroughs that have changed significantly the productivity of agriculture. But today, as we sit here in 2021, I think there are several forces and technologies that are going to dramatically change agriculture going forward. So forces like sustainability, as you all know, society is demanding that all companies and virtually all industries move to net zero emissions. And we really believe that agriculture can be a big part of the solution in this journey. And technologies like quantum computing, sensors, big data, and analytics, they're all going to come together to inform productivity and sustainability, I believe, in the near future on every square meter of every farmed acre. So if we could jump to the next slide. So as a company, we think of our strategy coming together through 5 distinct but interconnected platforms. And the very first one is the most important one, and it's the one I'll talk about, which is all about people. So if we could jump to the next slide. So just on sustainability for 1 minute, because it's such an exciting time, and I think it's going to be so consequential to how agriculture operates going forward. And all of you that are studying ag, I mean, the future is so exciting, and I think sustainability is going to be just a critical component to the work that you'll be involved in, no matter where in the supply chain or public service that you work in agriculture. So we at Nutrien are now working with growers to measure both water efficiency and greenhouse gas emissions or sequestration. And we believe farmers with technology today can adopt practices that can typically sequester or reduce up to 2 tons of carbon per acre. And so if you apply that across all the growing area around the world, it's incredible and could have incredible impact. So we are working hard to help farmers get verifiable carbon credits. A lot of the carbon credits that are available today, the protocols to validate those credits are really made for industrial companies. And so if you're a chemical company, you can do things with your processes that are easy to measure, and you can get verifiable carbon credits. What farmers are doing in their fields, as a lot of you know, it's less precise, but that doesn't mean it has less impact. And so we're working with a lot of the verification protocol NGOs that have really kind of set up their protocols for industrial companies and helping them adjust those protocols for agriculture. So if we can go to the next slide, and this is my final slide. So I do want to finish my comments talking about the importance of equity, diversity, and inclusion to not only Nutrien, but to the ag industry overall. I really appreciated Secretary Ross's comments on traveling around the world, and I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to travel the world many times over in my career, visiting farmers in every important agricultural growing region. I also lived in Asia for several years and worked directly with farmers there. And as many of you likely know, in many regions of the world, women, much more than men, are making the purchasing decisions on the farm. But even here in the US, women now make up over 1/3 of all farmers, and they're key decision makers on well over 60% of all farms. Agriculture is global, and farmers make up all races and all religions. Yet most global agricultural companies, and I know this because this is where I work, they're run by people that look just like me. But I'm very optimistic that this is changing. It's changing quickly, and it's changing much for the better. And as a world leader in agribusiness, we understand that we must live and operate by high standards, respecting human rights, culture, diversity, and dignity for all individuals. We also understand that we share these lands with the people and the communities where we operate. So we have a lot of work to do, but we're taking, I think, big steps in the right direction. And it's really a top priority for us. And I believe it's a top priority, which is a good thing for most global agricultural companies. So supporting and promoting diversity and inclusion is critical to our company's future. And why do I say that? It's very simple. It's not only the right thing to do, but our business success depends on it. Without diversity of thought and experience and perspective, decisions aren't optimized. And I know personally the best teams that I've ever worked on are the teams that were diverse, and very importantly, and this was just said in the last session, where the leader of that team created an inclusive environment so that people could just bring their best self, feel comfortable bringing their best ideas forward, and collaborating to ultimately make the right decisions. So at Nutrien, we're really working to foster communities for those that may feel in the minority. We have a number of employee resource groups, or ERG. Today we have 5 of them, specifically for Black is one of our groups, Pride, or the LGBTQ community, women, military, and young professionals. And I think very importantly, every one of these groups has members that may not be part of that demographic, but they join those groups as associates and allies of the group. And so we are encouraging and promoting diverse leadership while recruiting and retaining, which was said earlier, the most diverse and talented people that we can. Lastly, I just want to share my personal view on ED&I as a white male. Look, making change and having impact does require everyone. I think we're all role models, but since I'm in a position of leadership in our company and in the industry, I know that I have an even larger opportunity to have impact. The problems facing global agriculture are huge, and they need to be solved by the best and brightest minds in the world. And to do that, I really believe that agriculture needs to be a more welcoming place for everyone. And I'm committed to doing everything I can to make that happen, not just at Nutrien, but across the industry. So with that, I'll just wrap up my comments, and I welcome any comments from any of you or questions of me.
Thank you, Mike. We now have, we're going to do 3 more raffle drawings. And for the Amazon gift card, they're $50. The first winner is Laura Keeleman, and the second one is Haley Baldwin. Congratulations. And then we're going to do an AirPod drawing. And the winner for the AirPod is Marley Solicito. Congratulations. And Giselle's not going to take it away for the open Q&A.
Takes a little bit to get started, but now congratulations to our raffle winners, and thank you to all of our panelist speakers. We had some really great discussions and covered a lot of really impactful and important topics. So we would now like to open it up for questions from students or members in the audience to any of the panelists. So the way this will work is you can drop your questions in the chat and who they're addressed to, and then we'll go through those. Or you can also use the raise your hand function on your Zoom call if you have that. We will unmute you and you can ask your questions. So don't be shy. We had a really good conversation. Make sure to drop those questions. I know we had one earlier, and I can go ahead and start us off with that question. So earlier, let me look it up really quick because it was very early on. So Andrew Arroyo asked, how has COVID-19 affected agriculture in California? And this is directed for Secretary Ross, but any of the other panelists are welcome to address that question as well.
Sure. So few people realized until COVID shutdown happened that in our country, a little over 50% of our food dollars are spent outside of the home, whether it's at the student union, the cafeteria, restaurants, food service of all kinds, conventions, hotels, entertainment venues, sports venues, all those kinds of things. So if your business model was dedicated to that particular line of business, you were impacted much more differently than others who had a more diversified portfolio. And so that was a shock to the system. It was especially a shock to the system for small farmers who were very focused on selling to restaurants locally. And so that's where a lot of the immediate impacts were felt. Early on, a number of ag organizations joined together to do an economic impact projection, and they were speculating $5 to $8 billion in losses from having to make that sudden shutdown. We were able to divert a lot of that food to food banks, which was really important because we have a 15-year partnership with the State Association of Food Banks. But in the meantime, being able to keep agriculture going as an essential part of the infrastructure was huge. I have pointed out numerous times in 3 different speeches so far today that while the toilet paper aisle stayed empty for a long time, there might have been overnight, like the milk aisle was empty that particular day. The produce might not have had as many offerings that particular day, but the food supply kept going as we made these kinds of adjustments on production lines. And more importantly, the shift and the understanding and what's in the spotlight now is how vulnerable our farm worker community has always been, that we really put the spotlight on our workers who are out there, not only going to work every day, we were scrambling to get PPE for them because we were competing with healthcare for that. And we were scrambling on how to protect them, keep the testing going, and now getting the vaccinations going. I think that's something that we all need to work on together to improve the housing and transportation options for our farm worker community, and understand that not only did they do that work under COVID, we had wildfire seasons that started earlier than they've ever started. We had a whole month of July where practically the whole state was socked in with smoke, which actually impacted their safety and the respirators that they needed, but it also impacted the photosynthesis of our crops. So we learned a lot about 2020 that we hope we will incorporate as doing things better, and we don't have to relive again in 2021.
Thank you so much. Do any of the other panelists want to add on to that question before we move on to our next question? All right. So we had Dr. Mike up for a question. Or Moses Mike, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I wanted to say that I appreciate all the presentations. Secondly, Dr. Dara, I totally identify with you. I'm from the Caribbean originally, moved to Florida, the University of Florida, did my PhD there, did a couple instances of traveling throughout the US. Things are different everywhere, and then bam, I'm in SLO, one of the best places to be in the US, and I'm enjoying it so much. But my question is directed to Ms. Trabeau, if I'm saying that correctly. The question is, I'm in agricultural communication, and I'm also part of the video game community online. And the rhetoric is that, specifically among Black Americans, is that we're out here. Gamers are out here, Black gamers are out here doing their thing. And then people in the agricultural community, members of underrepresented groups are out here doing their things. The question is, how do I get my students to interact with you, your cause, and what you're doing by way of, and I shot you a message on Instagram, I want to do an interview with you and probably invite a couple of students to be part of that experience, capture that experience, and repackage that message in such a way that it reaches a wider audience. And then the other part is, how do we get to capture your sort of your process, your winemaking as a member of an underrepresented community, and relay that message to other individuals who may think that they're outside of this process, this winemaking, or something that's usually has another face. Let's put it like that. How do we get in touch with you in that capacity?
Firstly, rock on with your gaming. I'm not a gamer, but I do D&D and I watch anime and I watch horror movies, so I would love to geek out with you. Also, I would love to do an interview with you. If your students feel comfortable enough, I would love to have them into the winery to walk them through a day in my life. Harvest is a great opportunity for them to come and interact with me. I can take them with me out to the vineyards and show them my process. I love to geek out about wine, from the winemaking to the selling. If any of them are over 21, I would love to have them for like a really cool introduction into wine tasting. Or if they're under 21, I could sort of teach them about the importance of sensory analysis and knowing the differences between, sweet, salty, spicy, and all that. So I really look forward to connecting more.
For sure. Like I mentioned before, I shot you a message on Instagram, but I'll also send you an official email through the address that you sent me, and we'll definitely be talking soon.
Okay, wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm inviting myself to that wine tour too, just because, wine is great. So we have another question here for Dr. Dara from Amanda Stevenson. And it says, with your experience working in other countries, how does sustainable farming differ across the world?
That is actually a great question. And there are two things here. One, sustainable farming and the definition of sustainability. The definition of sustainability is the key. It could mean many things to many people. Are we talking about the financial sustainability of the farming practice and the farmer, or are we talking about environment or the sustainability of the biodiversity and so on? So, it is a very big topic, and then each area defines it differently. But at the end of the day, we need to feed the world. And we need to make sure that nutritious food items are affordable to everybody. And when we don't have those two things incorporated into the definition, true sustainability does not exist. But to answer your actual question, it varies quite, widely in different places. And, obviously you probably know a lot about, heard a lot about EU, how stringent they are about using certain items, agricultural inputs. So some countries are more geared towards sustainable food production, and US is one of them too. You may not realize that considering the extent of farming we have, especially in California, I am very confident. I always tell people that the conventionally produced food items in California are very safe. So you don't see that in other places. So we a lot of growers I work with, they don't define it as sustainable, but if you look at their practices, everything is towards sustainability, IPM, on all that, safety issues. So the regulations, especially, that's a very important thing. The government regulations make it sustainable in the US, and but it varies quite widely around the world.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Dara. So our next question is from Karen Watts to Mr. Mike Frank. So what resources or books have you used to learn more about diversity, equity, and inclusion? It's a great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. Thank you, Karen. So I don't have books to recommend per se, but here's what I do. So firstly, I meet separately with each of our ERG groups at least once a quarter. And I hear directly from them, like what's working and what's not working in our company. And I always want to know, what can we do better to make the folks that are part of that group feel more welcome and more productive in the company. And so I get a ton of feedback from that. And then secondly, when I often travel, and pre-COVID, I traveled a lot to visit our branches around the world. I would often take a couple people with me, often from our ERG group, so that they could also see our sites, visit our customers, and help me understand through their lens, what we're doing well and what we're not doing well at the local level. And one of the very simple experiences I had, maybe all two experiences. One was we left the branch one day. It was a small branch, probably had about 7 employees. And one of the people traveling with me, she said to me, why do you think there's no women working at that branch? And I said, well, I don't know. I mean, it's not obvious to me why there's no women there. It's all men. And so it's probably not a very inviting environment. And she said, look, it's much more basic than that. There's only one restroom in that branch. And so she said, I wouldn't send my daughter to work at a place like that. And so after that, we invested to make sure that we had at least 2 restrooms in every one of our branch facilities. So it's simple things like that. Another occasion, I was with a group of new hires, and I was talking to one of the people that was a new hire, and he had recently joined us from a very prestigious company in Chicago. And I was asking him, like, why did you decide to join our company? Like, you left a really good company in a really good city. And he said, well, actually, when I came out here to interview and meet the team that I'd be working with, he said something happened where I was visiting with one of the people that work here, and on his computer screen as a screensaver was a picture of another man. And he said, I said to that person, I said, well, who is that? And the guy said, well, that's my husband. So I said, well, how did that, help you make your decision? He said, look, I'm a gay man, and where I worked in Chicago, I couldn't have a picture of my husband on my desk. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. When I saw that I could be here in this company and be out and proud, that helped me make the decision. So it just really reinforced to me that, like, these simple things and creating a culture that's more inviting, you do get the best people that want to come and work at your company. And so they make a huge difference.
Great, thank you so much. So I know we have a couple of questions from other people in the audience, but they're being a little shy. So feel free to drop them in the chat. And Riley, did you have a question? I think you mentioned earlier you had a question.
Yeah, I was going to ask questions. So multiple people on the panel have mentioned that traveling is very important and that a lot of you guys have had travel experience. So my question is to anyone who wants to answer, what country have you gained the most diverse knowledge in agriculture?
All right.
I recently, in 2019, I got to go abroad and work in New Zealand. I worked up on the North Island over the east side in Hawke's Bay. It was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had for me, because I got to work with a team of about 5 people. Where I do production currently, it's just myself and my boss. So it was really fun to be able to work and learn under a variety of different experiences and different ways of sort of looking at everything. It was also really cool because I went from doing about 2,000 cases a year to working with a facility that works with about 30,000 tons of fruit, and not only fruit from their own property and the own places that they source from, but also they were taking care of custom crushed wines too. So they were helping with other wineries, and it was really cool to just sort of see how that all worked out. COVID has definitely affected the ability to be able to go and work a harvest. I had a few friends who were down in New Zealand when COVID hit and they were forced to come back home, or they were just forced to stay inside and not really get to interact with anyone else and get to sort of see all the sights. So I definitely recommend going abroad. If you have any questions about it, any visas, feel free to ask me.
Great, thank you, Justin. And Dr. Dara, did you have anything to add to that?
I was just going to say US is the diverse place, especially California. You cannot find this kind of diversity in agriculture anywhere else in the world.
Yeah. Did any of the other panelists have anything to add to that question?
If I could just add real quickly, obviously agriculture is very different, not only in the US, but around the world, whether it be smallholder agriculture or subsistence agriculture in parts of Africa and elsewhere. One of the really eye-opening experiences I had was when I was in Kenya talking to some cotton farmers that used to grow cotton because they were in an area that they could successfully grow cotton. And they were telling me that the cotton industry has been wiped out. And I was asking, well, why is that? And they said, well, the textile industry went broke here. And so it's, well, why did the textile industry go broke? And they said, because America has sent all their secondhand clothing to Kenya. And when that happened, there was no local market for the textile industry. And when the textile industry went under, it devastated our cotton growing area. So, I don't have an answer for that, but every action has a consequence. And it's just, we are part of a global ecosystem, and, supporting local farmers I think in every part of the world is just really, really critical.
I agree. Thank you, Mike Frank. So we have a question that was just dropped into the chat, and I think it's a great question as well. So Briono Serpa asked, if there is time, well, there is time, so that's good. What do you think the role of teachers and the teaching profession has in promoting a more equal, diverse, and inclusive environment moving forward? So any of our panelists can answer this question. Feel free to add your thoughts and answer this question.
I'll just say, if you look at significant societal changes across America, many of them began around education at the lowest grades of grade school. I mean, if you go back even to the beginning of time about seatbelts, how does the state become a leader in energy savings because of campaigns we ran and teachers who were part of teaching those kinds of lessons? I mean, I just feel like teachers, we put so much on teachers and they touch lives. You know, it's sometimes more hours while a child is awake than others do. And great teachers will impact you throughout lifetime in ways you might not even know, and they might not even know. And that's what I think is such a tribute to anyone who's in the education profession, their willingness to give so much of themselves and touch students without ever knowing how that came to fruition, which is why it's really nice when you have a chance to thank a teacher because they did do something that impacted you and choices you made and what you followed. It's so huge. I am a great admirer of people who spend their life in education.
Thank you so much, Secretary Ross. So we'll move on to our last question of the Q&A segment. So we have Marley Solicito, which asks, for the ag nutrient reps, as someone coming from a not fully agricultural background, as well as being a woman and going into the production farming side of the industry after graduation, what advice do you have as to finding a mentor and establishing your place in the industry?
Yeah, I'll take this one because I actually had this conversation yesterday. We have a new hire, a young lady, Cal Poly grad, yay, who is moving to Colorado from Merced, and she's going to work on one of our new marketing teams. And I talked to her and I said, you know, you need to find a mentor, not necessarily somebody that looks like you. So in her case, you know, find somebody else and find somebody in a different department. Some of the best experiences I've had in a mentor situation, you know, I worked with someone that worked in audit. I don't know anything about audit. I'm not a finance person, but it gave me a great opportunity to hear that we all have similar challenges in our day-to-day jobs, no matter what our title is. And, you know, so I said, you, and the best way to get a mentor is to ask other people to connect. You know, look at your LinkedIn, see what your profile looks like, and then if you see somebody, you know, reach out and connect with them. Interestingly enough, 2 weeks ago when we had the Honored Alumni event, I reached out to one of the other women that was involved in that had received the award, and she was at Cal Poly the same time I was. I didn't know her, but it turned out we knew similar people, but we connected for some other things, and she and I will go forward with that. And so I think the biggest thing is not to be afraid to connect and to reach out and, you know, ask different people. You know, I know we had a organic seminar 2-3 years ago, and I didn't know Dr. Dara, and I reached out to Dr. Dara, and now he's done a couple events for our company. But and I would you know, encourage somebody, you know, don't be afraid to ask. You know, if you don't ask somebody, you know, somebody can't say no if you don't ask. And so, you know, I think that's a great opportunity. And the other piece, both, you know, I know for sure with the Cal Poly students and the Fresno students is you have advisory councils for your departments and your deans. Get to know some of those people. If you know, if Dean Thulin asks you to go to an event, don't say no, don't be afraid. You know, I know that's how Giselle and Riley and Kendra got involved in things. So, you know, those people, I can tell you one of my best mentors was a person I met when I was a student at Cal Poly, and he continued to be my mentor and later turned into what I call a frienter, which is a mentor that turns into a friend. But that would be my advice on reaching out. And it doesn't matter. Like I said, that person definitely shouldn't be in your generation, and they shouldn't look like you. So that's my advice for what it's worth.
Great, thank you so much, Karen. Well, that wraps up our Q&A portion, and I'll hand it over to Kendra to move us into our next and final raffle.
Yes, so that was some great discussion in Q&A. We have one final raffle, and it is also another pair of AirPods, and our final raffle winner is Maggie Swanson. So congratulations, Maggie. So this concludes our event. Congratulations once again to all of our winners. And if you would like to connect with any of the panelists, you can reach out to them via email or LinkedIn. We will put the slides up right now, and we encourage you to screenshot these and connect with our panelists and our speakers. They want to hear from you. They want to connect with you. So once again, thank you for joining us for the 2021 Aspire to Grow event. And thank you again to our wonderful speakers and event sponsors. So have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.